We're going to get started here. Just a minute. We're waiting on one accessory and maybe a couple more people to straggle in. But we're getting out. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, thanks for being here. My name is Victor Hernandez. I'm an SPJ board member, and we have many other SPJ board members in the room, so I'm grateful for everyone's participation in this conversation this morning. This is actually the highlight of my trip to San Antonio, believe it or not, because in school, I was interested in history, but I just never really, that never really took off on me. This conversation today is about the future, which is exciting. There's been a lot of behind-the-scenes work that's gone into what the potential roadmap and the solutions to really critical challenges facing the Society of Professional Journalists is really being woven into for the last 4.5 months of rich conversation with about 8 of us associated with the board. And so this is an update to provide to membership and anyone interested here in San Antonio, what's been occurring, where the findings have, how we've received these findings, what some of the early takeaways are through the process, and then what the next steps are building toward phase 2 of that process. I hope everybody has found the right room, and we certainly welcome this to be an interactive experience. And so as you have questions, and there is the entire back half of the hour that's now allocated toward listening and receiving and answering questions, as well as hearing further ideas and input. So I don't want anybody to feel that this is going to be an hour-long deep dive presentation. It's roughly 30 minutes. And then that other 30 is for us to be able to capture and record all of the input we received this morning and ongoing. We'll talk about the other touch points in which members will be able to articulate concerns, ideas, allow their voice to be heard. We're waiting on a flip chart, but in the meantime, Patty is capturing notes. I assure you through the live stream, as well as all of the note taking in the room, this is a critically important piece to this committee's work. All right, sound good? I'm going to pick on my colleagues from the task force throughout. I have the fortunate role of playing the chair for this phase 1 rollout. But everybody has been equal participant in the contributions for this effort, and so I'm going to start things off. But all of them who have been quite involved, I hope will engage. The overview of the strategic task force has been built around these central themes to through research and identifying what a new strategic plan for the society looks like. Patty's vision, we all really have subscribed to from early on, is we're not talking about a 25-year vision. We're not talking about a decade out vision, but we're talking largely the next 1 to 3 years. What does that blueprint look like for the short and medium term that just doesn't exist in a very shared way. What does that vision look like, and what do the tactics around those strategies start to take shape around? We through the project have emphasized prioritization around phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, which began last spring after the April board meetings in Indianapolis and the launch of this committee, into phase 2, which will culminate in a big comprehensive report at next year's April board meetings. We're looking at to include a number of recommendations that are being gathered at that big 2020 report. And so really what today is about is sharing some of the feedback, sharing with you what the fundamental questions are that we're trying to solve for as an organization, and help everyone understand what the opportunities are at play. We focus really on some really broad intent of what the core issues are and what those touch points look like, which I'll show you here in a minute, and then we're narrowing them down as we move forward. We've conducted a membership survey. We have the town hall listening experience that's happening now, as well as some focus groups that are being scheduled for September. And all of this information is being made accessible on the SPJ info page, which the URL is here. But if you go to the SPJ homepage, about midway down at this point, there's a post about it. Click on that, there's FAQ. We just recently posted the survey results, as well as a more rich presentation that stretches even beyond this version. It's got more data. This is the members of the task force committee, and again, I'm just so happy and been so fortunate to chair this group because they've all been intimately involved with ideas and energy, and it's been important that we have that proper buy-in at this level. And so, of course, we've got a great sort of variety of diverse roles and experience and expertise and perspective. Of course, Alex is the current president. Patty is the president-elect. It's been great leadership and buy-in from the top, as well as we've got folks from staff, April representing the foundation. Kimberly Chin, who is our newest team member, is a recent college graduate from CUNY and was brought on specifically to help us reflect the perspectives of young people, recent graduates or students, which is a very important piece to this. Moving forward, Matt Hall will join for the phase 2. So now and moving forward, and will assume the role of the chair. And we also plan to include the executive director, TBD, of course. And I know, Patty, you have some thoughts about why that is so important moving forward once that comes together.
Right, so thanks to those of you who joined us this morning, and I hope other folks will come in. But it's critical that we executive director be part of this conversation. We have some good news this week. Candidates are ready to be interviewed, and we hope to make that happen this week. So that's really good news. And as soon as that goes is hired and brought in, he or she will be inspected to see how this transfer, to have a conversation about what is possible. Here's the plan the board envisions, but what is possible given our resources and given other priorities of the
Everybody doing okay so far? Yeah? Good. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So in 2019, again, it comes back to the research, the gathering of the feedback, and the critical updates, not only to the boards, but also back to membership, largely through the SPJ info page. We've conducted the survey, which we'll get into. We have the town hall further listening, and the themes have really been around exploration and research. The 2019 phase 1 really sort of concludes after San Antonio as we move into phase 2. We will continue to crunch and analyze the data coming out of the survey as well as the focus groups. The culmination will be this large, comprehensive report filled with recommendations that will be presented to the board, of which we anticipate there will be tremendous influence toward the future direction of where the organization heads. I mentioned that what we're going through here now is sort of a light version, just to sort of tighten it and keep it high level in terms of the takeaways, in terms of the early learnings. All of the data is actually available in terms of the survey on the info page now. But we've also made to both boards sort of a medium version of the information, so that they're getting more than just sort of the tight high level look that you see before you today. We'll get into a lot more, trust me. And everybody has access to the project timeline, as well as I do want to again call out for anyone interested in focus groups, and I would encourage everybody, if you haven't participated, particularly in the survey, to think about joining one of these online focus groups. Within the next 2 weeks after leaving San Antonio, we will post a series of opportunities for folks to sign up for these online focus groups. That we will ask a few questions, we want to listen further, we want to hear ideas, and this is going to be very important to help inform the committee's work. And so I would encourage everybody to keep an eye on this info page. We've got available touch points. We're working diligently as a committee to not operate in a vacuum and sort of be behind the scenes for months and months on end and cobble together the big picture strategy plan and then come to a conference or some event and lift the curtain. We want to make this very accessible. We're providing monthly updates as well as all of these touch points here in San Antonio before and beyond. Just some additional background that I think helps sort of formulate the proper context for why we're doing this and how we've arrived to this point in time today. The last sort of formal strat plan from SPJ was back in 2007 under Joe Steele, which was a fairly robust document with a lot of interesting recommendations and takeaways. Talked about what SPJ would look like 50 years from now and how membership, which it would take on a very different form, likely based on some pronouncements and predictions from Joe. And that was presented more than a decade ago. And as we've heard and people have indicated, that was not a document that was largely implemented. It was something that I think a lot of people looked at, it's my understanding, but not a lot of action came from it. Since then, there's been other attempts, and there's been certainly a lot that's been written and pontificated, but we looked to something more recent. Earlier this year, Dave Collier's report, not specifically for SPJ, but it tied back into SPJ's role as a society and a professional organization. It was a really interesting document that looked at what many of the other organizations are doing that are trending in positive directions around membership and growth and where SPJ stands to gain ground. And so we've examined that quite closely. We've made these documents available on the info page. If you haven't seen them, but they are really good food for thought. So these play parts of our research and exploration in terms of where we could go next. And at the beginning, part of the process, we thought it was critical to really be asking the right questions. And so I've been talking for 15 minutes now, so I'm going to ask one of the board members. April, do you want to talk us through some of the questions that we raised as we sought the right answers for the project?
Sure. So the idea of doing a strategic plan is can be very, very broad. So we wanted to make sure that we could focus on things that would help us not only come up with a plan that would be very specific, but something that could get buy-in from members and potential members and just folks in our industry as well. So in the beginning, Victor posed about 11 questions for us on the task force to consider and give our ideas, and then we use that to sort of jump ahead and help form questions for the membership survey. So kind of the biggest question is, what do we want SPJ to be known for? Not only in the next few years, but long term. So that's obviously a very important question for us. We know that there are now more than 65 journalism organizations. And so we also wanted to look at, how do we stand out? What are our advantages? But we also wanted to be very frank about what our disadvantages are, because a lot of our members have moved on to other organizations, and we want to know what are they doing well, and are there things that we could adopt within SPJ to maybe not replace other organizations, but help people understand that SPJ should also be considered in the mix when you're deciding how to spend your money and your resources. And then also wanted to get at, what do members value most from the organization, and what are the types of programs that we want to continue. I think it's obvious that we're going to be making some changes, and we're going to have to make some hard decisions about maybe what SPJ has done in the past that we should stop doing in the future. But we want to make sure in making those decisions that we're not cutting things that our members truly value. And so trying to answer that question was also very important for us.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going?
Sure.
We also needed to get just more demographics about or information about who our current members are. How do we see that continuing in the future? Do we think we're going to attract different membership in the future? And then also, how do we, I guess, sort of the biggest question is, we know SPJ has to evolve, but we also know that we have some very key loyal members, and how do we make this transition, do this evolution without alienating our current membership base as well. So that's probably, I would say, one of maybe the second biggest question. We want to know, what should SPJ be known for in the future, but we also know that we've had a fairly significant membership decline over the past few years, but those of you who have remained loyal to the organization, we don't want to change so much that you feel like you don't have a home in SPJ anymore.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, as April said, we have spent a lot of time looking at what other associations, what other organizations are doing, where are members turning to. Certainly we recognize that, yes, many of us are members to more than one association. It's not a pick your favorite and then your lifetime in, and then you can't participate in other organizations and gain something from those and contribute back in. And I'm sure many of you are members of several, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, why are some of these growing membership and we are not? Why are some of these groups receiving recognition and accolades for work that we're doing in the similar space? We're doing the same things, or maybe even going beyond what their efforts are, but they're getting the good buzz from that, and seemingly SPJ is not. So we spent some time unpacking that. And to just add some further context here, if we think about SPJ in the 110 years of all of its glory, we've had a theme that began last April that we continue to sort of hold in the back of our minds, that I visualize a Swiss Army knife when I think about SPJ, and all that it has grown over those decades of what it offers back to members. And there are 40 to 50 different utilities that you can find, different size blades and spoons and screwdrivers, and we've got things for students to retirees. We've got programs from FOIA and ethics and open government to some of the more cutting edge digital techniques. We cover the gambit, and that's what SPJ has become as we've evolved over 110 years. Whereas you look at some of the newer associations like ONA and you can look at IRE, and you look at some others, they look more like a single purpose scalpel. They move, or the perception is they have a bit more precision in terms of the value of why someone who's thinking of joining a professional association, what would their alignment, what would they get from that relationship? And so, not that we need to whittle ourselves down to one or two, but if we thought about what if we did focus on the handful of things that seem to offer the value to most, could that be more in line of what others are doing, experiencing success at this level? We don't have those answers yet. These are the themes we've been thinking about, and it's been really interesting to sort of think about it through that framework. the outputs, I think, will be very exciting come April on what that starts to look like. So the member survey, and maybe Yvette wants to help us out on this section, because this was really fascinating to hear back from members. Why don't I'm just going to give the quick overview on on who we heard from and how we heard from them and what that looked like, and then Yvette will take it away with these responses, and I can help, but maybe she can drive. And so what we're always quick to point out at the beginning of this segment is we heard from about 10% of members, right? So when we get into the results, we are careful to not suggest this is how SPJ members feel today. This was not anything near unanimous. This was actually only 550 people that responded back to a midsummer email survey, which is a challenge internally, right? But 10%, 10 to 15% response rate on an external survey is acceptable. It's okay. So we're within those bounds. We're not too worried that it's a bad sample. The sample's fine, but it is a small sample of obviously a huge data set, a much bigger data set. The interesting aspects here, about a 50-50 split, male to female. We wanted to get right around 20 questions, not too much, but about 20 questions to get in front of membership, and we ended up with 34 because we just kept adding in more compelling questions one after the other. You can see the states where the most respondents chimed in from. The majority of folks who did respond were of professional background, and of that, those with a newspaper background followed by online, and then other being freelance or public relations or something else, followed by magazine, TV, and radio. 2/3 of the respondents were 50 or older, with 61 to 70 as the most common age bracket. So certainly we skewed older in the responses we received. And there were some takeaways on that, on how we could, perhaps if we did this again, we could better focus and channel some of this toward young people, which is pretty critical. And the one real positive from the jump in receiving these was, it was noted that 68% indicated they would be very likely to renew their SPJ membership in the next year. So with the tumultuous year we've experienced and a lot of the things going on, a lot of the back and forth, even through a relatively rocky year, there's still optimism from much of our members that they're still interested in continuing that relationship. That's a good thing. And so we've got some key findings, and then we can get into the data. But Yvette, you want to talk to, you were so instrumental in gathering this. I want you to run with it.
So board member Mike Riley and I kind of drilled into the responses from the members who did submit the survey. And again, we want to be careful to say this isn't SPJ says, it's the respondents. Do not support moving headquarters to a coastal maybe media outlet or a bigger media outlet such as New York or DC. Respondents don't support a name change, but they do support increasing lobbying efforts. They strongly oppose an increase in membership dues. And you'll see later, there's some inconsistency as to the questions about education and digital training. But our focus areas that they told us, ethics, not surprising, is number 1, journalism training, number 2, and then open governance. Impact opportunities they saw, advocacy for journalism, strongest. Then our code of ethics, industry relevance, and media literacy. So as I said, Mike Riley and I dug into the data a bit, and we asked some frank questions because we wanted frank answers, and we certainly got that. So what do you value? Access to First Amendment ethics, FOIA, legal defense, followed by relevance with the industry association, and then network and career resources. We did hear from people who talked about concerns about next steps for jobs and things like that. Then journalism training and board opportunities. What would you expect SPJ to be known for? So this was interesting, career resources. As I said, people are concerned with Plan B. A lot of people are in transition. And then diversity, pardon me, ethics was first, I'm sorry, ethics was first, journalism training, and open government. But I did want to point out career resources and diversity, because we really hadn't seen those before when we were talking. But yeah, but we would be known for, pardon me on that, ethics, and journalism training and open government. And those, those are our bedrock areas. Certainly we didn't see respondents telling us to blow that up in any way. But I do think it's important to see the other areas that they said they should be known for.
And I do think, just coming back into the Swiss Army knife analogy, that if we said, hey, we don't need 40 blades in 2020 and beyond, maybe we bring it down to 5 or 6. When we posed this question, I can't remember, we have it in the packet, there were like 10 or 12 possibles with a write-in option. And so these were the things that jumped out. So if we said, hey, let's bring it down to a more modern, useful tool set that we provide to members, these are the themes that we heard that resonate the most. So sort of that's the overlay there toward that.
Now, where are we lacking? So we heard from people who wanted training, they wanted more online training resources. So we heard webinars. We need to look at how we're presenting information and training through webinars and online resources. But of course, there were some people who were satisfied, as well as wanting in-person training. But I think the takeaway here is people are interested in webinars and online resources. So we talked about the kind of 11 bedrock questions that we wanted people to tell us what they thought. But then we also had people actually give us some write-in information. So we learned from our respondents about SPJ education and digital training that there's a need for digital tools training and online training. We just saw that in the previous question. And the SPJ is not meeting the needs in this area, and that there could be improvement in that area. And of course, in-person trainings are important. People still enjoy those, but again, they told us not as important as online trainings to them because there's more flexibility, being able to actually participate in that area and not have to go somewhere. Now, the question that we talked about some inconsistency. So in this other question, respondents ranked journalism training number 2 as to what the organization should be known for, which is pretty high, but it ranked 4th on what they value most in the organization. So again, there was some inconsistency there. So survey comments. So members expressed opinions, and again, we wanted this, and again, we got many frank opinions. And one comment seemed to sum up what many respondents shared with us, that SPJ was not welcoming, that it was impersonal, low profile, and no public position on important issues. And that was that perception. We did have some common themes that we gleaned from these open-ended questions. Communication, that was a big area. Members want more, and they want better open communication with the board and with headquarters. They indicated that board infighting takes us away from the mission of SPJ. And also they want more chapter support. We heard a lot from people about chapter support and more interaction with the chapters, both chapters to chapter and chapter to the board and headquarters. And local programming. And so particularly for chapters wanted more local programming and turnkey programming where they could just take a program that had best practices or successful, and they could just, they could replicate that at home. Members who responded wants training that goes beyond Facebook and Google. So we talked about online resources and digital, but as far as the training itself, many respondents actually wanted reporting, storytelling, back to the basics training in this training and in the webinars. And of course, why? Well, many wanted training that would prepare members for their next jobs, whether or not they are early in their career or going through transition. They wanted more employee assistance, again, transition, and they also wanted more lobbying and advocacy for journalism. They questioned our ethical diversity. And it's important to remember these questions, whether or not you agree this was a perception of our respondents. Perception is key. Now, there are many where people actually were very complimentary and liked some things that we're doing. So it's important to remember that. A strong voice of like-minded colleagues who value journalism, ethics, and First Amendment, and open government advocacy. People like rewards, they like to quill, they like email updates. Someone said, I appreciate its long-lasting voice. SPJ can be a leader in the community and promoting media literacy. They appreciate it a lot, and other legal support for journalists. And we like this last quote, that we simply exist in today's difficult media landscape or media environment.
We'll take the credit anywhere we can, right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
just the fact that we're still here after
We're
110.
That's right.
Sure.
We talked about a need for better communication in the previous slide. And we did hear from this. We had a lot of people who talked about this. Someone expressed that we had poor communication among members, too much bureaucracy, and that many people could not, in 30 seconds, tell you what we do or what we stand for. We need to promote ourselves better in that mission. Someone wanted more information on national government issues. I don't have time to wander through blogs to send me the information. So we definitely had people who wanted that communication, but they wanted it in a way that they could digest it quickly. Communication that stimulates action and environment, and that we just shouldn't rely only on SPJ leads and social media for communication. So again, a strong desire for communication, but in a way that they can better digest it. And kind of a final indicator, when I came across this one, it seemed very telling. So this was from a female professional radio journalist, 41 to 50 years of age, and she said, I'm not sure what the role is supposed to be, how I'm supposed to connect, and I'm not aware of whatever free speech journalism for state advocacy is going on. So this was kind of a telling quote, but within this, we got a lot of aspects of this from our other respondents. And so it's important that we take a hard look at that and see how we're able to communicate that better to our members.
Thank you very much, Yvette. In closing, just a reminder on the next steps, and we're going to have plenty of time for some great back and forth interaction. But in closing here on this piece, so we're doing the research now. You can see we're gathering the questions. You know, we're going through the process. We're developing what the framework needs to look like. We are listening. We are establishing these focus groups. We are culling through the research and the data. We're posting the updates available on spj.org, and coming in the spring under Matt Hall and the entire committee, there will be an incredible, I'm sure, report that will be very interesting for everyone involved, and then some, and so that will be made available. Before we open it up to the room, we're here to hear, answer questions, hear ideas, input, the whole 9 yards. But all of this, so much of this has been driven by Patty's vision and pursuit for a better way forward, and it's been a real driving force. So maybe, Patty, this is your weekend. You're taking the reins. Do you want to talk about what the important piece of strategy means to what your term will look like, and then even beyond that?
Right, so just a small background. We're here because we downsize the board, right? And the whole idea of having a smaller board is so it's more nimble and strategic. And that board will work with the society, goes down to the committees, the chapters, the members who are really doing the work, are the lifeblood of SPJ. So when I first board meeting tomorrow, I'm going to share an organizational chart with the board on ways that we can communicate with all the different constituencies that make up SPJ, so that everybody knows who you talk to a lot and now machine. We'll start chewing on that and see if I've got a workable model. So that's the first important thing, that it's really necessary for us to move forward with the plan. So we've done a lot of work here. It's all going to get boiled down to a short, tight document that So we have 2 to 3 years of priorities, so that everybody's on the same page. These are the things we're doing, and that means these are the things we're not doing. It's been the habit of this organization for many years, that every president comes in with a wish list of new things they're gonna do. I'm tonight in my speech promising no new initiatives. Bold, I know, but we have enough initiatives. We have too many initiatives. We have to decide who we are, who we aren't. And, all the competition for our members' dollars and time, we have to do better at figuring all that out. So, I have my wish list of things I think we should focus on, but it needs to be informed by what members would like to focus on. So this is, I'm gonna start talking and invite you to respond to anything you've heard, any of the questions that we put forward in the survey, and we'll start with Hazel Becker. You want to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
all right.
fine, got it.
Great, thanks. Hazel, introduce yourself to the room.
I'm Hazel Becker. I am a retired journalist. Proudly retired, happily retired. I didn't get laid off or anything. For the past 2 years, my mission in life basically has been to help freelance journalists figure out what's next in their life, how to make it our business. The thing that I want to impress upon the strategic planning people today is that I hope SPJ will remember that we voted again and again and again, that we are the society of professional journalists. And I think that we focus a lot on professional journalism, but we don't focus enough on the journalists themselves. We have a chapter-based membership, but most of our members aren't in chapters. We're counting on the locals to do the program. And I happen to be in a chapter that does the most incredible program. Can't believe how much they know. But I hope that the strategic plan will include how to get people who are not necessarily in chapters or who have other affinity groups together and make them feel part of SPJ. So you heard that people feel like SPJ is kind of a cold place and they can't get connection. And I hope that you will find a way to bring more affinity groups together. The freelance community is only one example. I don't think that they all should operate the way we do. Because different groups, let's talk about Generation J. How are we going to keep these young people involved? Freelance community would be glad to help, and we have a lot of freelance community. And freelancers like choice. We're not talking about people who can't get a job. We're talking about people who want to be freelancing. Well, that's not everything. The way we're working is working for us, but there need to be other ideas about how to keep the young people involved. And I think if you focus on what journalists need, we've already got ethics wrapped. We've already got freedom of information. We do a lot of educating the public now. I'm so glad we do. So maybe it's time to turn internal to our members. What can we do to keep our members involved, to make them feel welcome in SPJ, whether they have a welcoming and highly programmed local chapter or not?
I concur completely. I feel like all this work happens at the chapter level or the non-chapter member, that we just don't leverage the power of everything that's happening across the country. We don't celebrate all the great programming. We're very good at sharing ideas from one place to another, and lots of folks here and on the board have ideas on how to correct that and make some progress on that. So thank you.
Hi, DeVries. I'm the chair of SPJ membership committee. Also on the board of the Building Club in New York. I'm a little concerned about the response rate, of course, the survey and the primary demographic that responded to it being 50 plus. I feel like, the information that you have is great. A lot of the sentiment that is shared is informative to us on how to move forward. But we're missing a huge amount of people that are part of our organization. Is there a plan to reach out to them? I know you're doing focus groups, and that's great. I'm going to make those links to folks to join them. I'll bring them back to New York and circulate them locally as best we can to get people to join those focus groups. And I encourage every other chapter or region to do the same. Perception is everything. Someone's perception is their reality. And if they have a negative perception about our organization, they're done. They're not going to join. They're not going to renew. And that has been happening a lot in the last year, or years. The other thing that as far as membership goes, there are many membership types. As Hazel said, there's freelance. There are young professionals, students, journalism educators. We are engaging in a strategic planning process locally, excuse me, and looking at those membership types and how each of those membership types should be served, what their needs are, how we can design programming around each membership type, and hoping that they will stay engaged based on that. But yeah, I really love this, what you're doing. It's super, super important. I think the 2 to 3 year projection is a good one, because then you really focus on hard tasks.
So let me respond to a few of those things. We do envision it as a short-term plan, but also not something that is just sits in the drawer, and so that's what we did in 2019. We envision it being revisited every year. What have we accomplished? What haven't we accomplished? What's new on the list? What should we take off the list as the tides change? So that's the first thing. In terms of not getting a big enough sample or reaching our younger members, yes, right? We're talking actively about how to reach out to younger members, how to reach out to lapsed members, potentially reopening the survey. Some of those things that's good, some of those don't, but definitely continuing beyond the 2 focus groups. The focus groups will be a chance to do this to people who are not here, right? To more narrow to the conversation. So, and it continues, but you've got to, at some point you say, okay, we've got as much as we need to collect in this time. We can get it forever. Bring that person to fold, get that person up to speed, collect some more information, make sure that we get some of the voices that have not heard, and then try to have something for the board in April, share with membership after something's been done. So, did I respond to everything you mentioned?
Sure.
Second.
Couple comments.
Could you introduce yourself?
Sorry, Stephanie Lucy, I'm the president of the Los Angeles Project. Code of ethics, we own that is ours, and I think we really need to keep pushing that. Do we have a way for people to get answers, especially on the deadline, from an expert that I'm not sure how that's still working, but
It is, yeah.
but we need to get that word out there.
Right, I have that. I mean, fingertips, but we do have a ethics hotline.
Yeah.
We do answer ethics questions real time. There's a team of people who can do that, and the report is in the packet. The report from the ethics committee is in the packet, tells you how many times they respond in real time and in password.
Maybe some more publicity on that to get that out there, because maybe people would say, you know what, I want to be an SPJ member just to support that. Not that, and I'm assuming it doesn't only service members, but it seems like that's something that could be supported, and that people could get behind. Because I don't know that any other journalism organization offers that. That code of ethics is ours, like the Great Code of Ethics, and we need to keep pushing that, making people aware that that is ours.
And the webinars, I'm a little concerned about that because Pointer has their webinar thing up and running. Some of them are free, some of them are not, and some are very reasonable, $25, some can be a bit more, they offer certificates. I would just caution us, two things on that, to not duplicate what Pointer is doing, so make sure and look and see, you know, what you're doing, recreating the wheel. And do we have the capacity to create these? I'm not sure.
I don't know if we do, but I am totally on board with what you just said. We don't want to recreate the wheel. If Pointer has good stuff that we can partner with them and make it available to our site, that is the way to go. There's so many groups that do so many things well that we maybe don't have the ability to do well, the capacity to take on. But there's no, I mean, here's a small example. And this is not to throw our big friend Jennifer under the bus, but every week we have a newsletter. And in the newsletter, there are exactly 2 job openings for journalism. And I read those every week and I go, why do we do that? That looks so silly to me, right? There are dozens of journalism job sites and other groups that promote, oh, let's just have the link to that. Looking for a job, remember, go here, or et cetera. So let's, you know, the idea of creating some kind of consortium of groups is probably too ambitious for this year, right? But I think that's the future, is partnering and let everybody kind of be in their wheelhouse and use the smart resources of these other groups. So that's an example. Pointer, they do great programming. They built it out, they've been doing it a long time. Yeah, we could maybe add to that, or we could see where there's holes to do our own, but why don't we just say, hey, Pointer, you guys do this, here's something you don't do, why don't you create that and we'll promote it for you.
Or could we partner with them so that our members get a discount or can get it for free, right? We don't have to build it, but we can partner with them.
So that might be laid out in the strategic plan that we put in place in April. Can we implement it by April? No. But we can say we're headed toward that, and then we're going to, you know, the plan will say,
Right.
we're going to look into this, we're going to investigate this, and put some hard deadlines on when we hope to have those kinds of things happen.
And just, I don't know if all this any further, but just a quick response, like, obviously, again, we don't want to duplicate what other people are doing, but we can use webinars to enhance the work that we're doing. You mentioned ethics. That's been involved with the updated, our new ethics book, so that's going to happen as well. Perhaps we do a webinar that expands that and talks on ethics, so that's sort of an add-on to a project that we're already doing, have the benefit.
That'd be a great idea, we could get into the classrooms and you know, hold that, make that available to the Pointer, for instance, Pointers. Who has
Fill the
it?
gaps too.
What's that?
Fill the gaps.
Fill the gaps.
Nobody's
Exactly.
doing concerted freelance program.
We want, it's a good idea, let's do this, then Jennifer, and we'll try to get everybody their hands up. Go ahead. I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Kurt Bishop, I'm the president of the Central Iowa Coach Chapter.
My home state, sorry, hi, Garth, nice to see you.
We've been once before, I forget everybody's name after the first time, so not Jennifer. Actually, the second time I heard it correctly. So, this is sort of a multi-part question, hopefully it takes you long bit. You know, we talk a lot about trying to emphasize what areas we're best at, we're best known for. We have a lot of talk about like advocacy work, FOI requests, things along those lines, media literacy. One of the things that I felt, since we're talking a lot about like, trying to appeal to, either, current members or people who we want to be members, is that, I can talk to them all day long about, the organization does all these great things on a macro level, but it resonates a lot better. My experience might have specific examples, like point in a situation where SPJ did this, was able to help this individual member in their FOIA request, or was involved in some of the advocacy. So what avenues do we have now for those individual stories? Like how are we getting, if we have individual grace or a perfect example, how are we getting those stories out?
Meaning, how are we telling kind of like success stories?
How do we celebrate the SPJ wins?
Yeah, so I think we do it in kind of a diluted way, right? It's a little here, a little there, and we had that conversation in membership yesterday, membership committee. Maybe we're gonna have a standing place on site or in the weekly newsletter that highlights SPJ success, new member success, you know, terrific program or terrific journalism that comes out of particular. I don't think we do a very good job of that, to answer your question, and I think there are some kind of small things that could have a big impact to highlight exactly what we're talking about. So, thank you for that suggestion. Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer Ellis. I'm president of the Arkansas Grove. We won a chapter, small chapter of the year last 2 years. So what I want to tell you is my personal story real fast. I love journalism, always have. I started in high school. Life kind of got away from me, and I went back to college 10 years later. Sorry. I started back in ULR. Didn't immediately go back to the newspaper, just wanted to get my degree. Start making more than $12 an hour. Then I wrote a letter to the editor because I thought it was ridiculous that they put this really important news story on their main page. She wrote me back and invited me to come. I came. I became the editor of the newspaper for the next 2 years. One editor of the year in Arkansas, and became the SPJ chapter president after 2 years. We won some Circle of Excellence awards. And I am not an outgoing person whatsoever. I'm very shy. But I put on an outgoing face every time we do an event. And I reach out to people constantly. Because that's what brought me to SPJ. I wouldn't have come to journalism had those people not asked me to come in. I was SPJ chapter president at ULR. When I got a job, my first job was a copy editor far away from my house, driving an hour and a half. Finally, got a job offer there, like I'm sure I said, in the promotions department as a special sections designer and writer. I would have come back into SPJ, but I really didn't feel welcome because although I was doing journalism, writing beautiful stories about health, telling stories to people about children who've been abused, which invited thousands of dollars to the children's hospital. I didn't feel welcome. It wasn't until Sonny Alvarado contacted me because he had talked to Sonny Rhodes, who was my chapter president there, and suggested that I join the board. Our chapter had been defunct. It hadn't done anything. They had given me scholarships when I was in college, but they hadn't done anything other than that in years. And me, Chelsea Windsor, Chad Day, several other, I call myself young. I am 42, don't get me wrong. This is maybe looks like a younger face, and I went to college recently, so I connect with those people very well, but I have some life experience too. And anyway, I would not have come back had it not been for Sonny Rhodes and Sonny Alvarado pushing me to come back. And I told Sonny no at first. I was like, no, I don't I don't feel like I am the journalist that they want to be on my board. Obviously, I am the most active member of our board, of our chapter. Since then, I put hundreds, if not thousands, of hours in this. So I just want people to realize that we are not welcoming. We have to put on welcoming face. We have to reach out to people individually because it's not going to work any other way. Unless we really change the way we talk And our chapter has put out a new resolution for the name change, the same name change that we've talked about for years. I think it's a very small thing to help in opening up our organization. I see that the survey has said that we do not want a name change. Those people are over 50 years old. They don't know my story. They don't know the story of many other people. Wendy Miller, our treasurer, same situation. Sarah McCurry, same situation. Both of our board members who put in all the work. We have tried and tried and tried and tried to get members from our newsroom to join. They come to our events. They learn, they get all the information. They appreciate our organization, they understand our organization, they want to be part of it. I don't know what's holding them back other than money. Other than actually, we've tried to do a few things to help with that situation. And we're working on it. Putting together a mentor program, a local mentor program. We're putting together, sheets that say, here is how to do the auto dues. Why the hell is auto dues not available just online to go click a button and be done? Like, why do you have to call headquarters to do that? I love personal phone calls. I'm 42. I'm old school. I like to use the phone. I hate text messaging, all of those things. But there are other people who do not want to talk to somebody right away. They just want to get done and move on. We had another person in the special sections department at the newspaper who called 4 times. Never got through right away. It took me a year and a half to finally actually go and sign up. After we've been to like 20 of our different events. We host events monthly so that people know that there's always something that they can come to. Yes, you can't make it one day because it's on a different time than you need, you have a deadline, whatever. But you know that there's an event next month, maybe you'll get to that one. I think we need consistency, I think we need people to reach out to people individually. Why? When we were selected for our Circle of Excellence Award this year, we did not even get an email. The previous year we did. But why didn't someone just call? Jennifer, you guys won Circle of Excellence Award, congratulations. It takes the same amount of time as it does to send an email. And that's a reach out and touch somebody. Before I came back to journalism, I was doing telemarketing. I know how telemarketing runs itself, but I have done it, and I was fundraising for different charities. So I know that personal contact makes such a difference. Like, I know a lot of us are very shy, but we force ourselves in this job constantly to reach out to people and talk to people, even though we don't want to. Here at this conference, we network, even though really we like sit in the room. All of us, I think not all of us, but many of us are like that. I'm exhausted when I'm done with one of these, or one of our exhausted because I'm putting on this show that I am wanting to go talk to everyone when I'm really not. I want to make connections with people, but it's not my nature. I am going against my nature to go and talk to all these people.
Can I just ask you something? I didn't know we didn't get notified. We should have, make sure that it's.
You offered a lot of really good input. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And God bless Sunny for bringing it to the fold. That is not what it takes. So lots of good suggestions of things we can do better in terms of communicating, welcoming, onboarding with our members. We're at 10 o'clock. If you have to go to something else, feel free. I don't think the room is taken, so we can continue if you can. I saw James hand next, and then Andy. I think that's your question.
I just want to answer Stephanie's question. The National Federation of Press Women also has an ethics code, very similar to ours. And I've also, but I have also seen them linked to ours on things. Because some people have dual memberships. And as for our ethics code, I know one conglomerate of digital news franchises on the East Coast. When somebody purchases a franchise, they are required to abide by our ethics code. Their owner, the man who set up the franchise is a member, he's a member of the New Jersey Pro chapter, and he requires, that's one of the things he requires of his franchisees. He says, this is the SPJ ethics code, this is it. And I think that's a great thing. I wonder, since there is so much local news is coming through independent digital media, if we can just somehow promote that, say, hey, this is what this guy does, and then, I didn't ask him, I mean, he just did it himself, called me up one day and said, hey, you think this is a good idea? I said, oh my God, yes. And I don't know how we can exactly do that, because there's so many little independent people, but just to really say, hey, it's out here, this is what, I want you to do.
Andy?
Yeah, I'll just go very quickly. I walked in pretty late, like every Saturday, about ethics. I used to work on that top line as ethics chair. There are hundreds of calls a year. It's a very valuable service. It's not an SPJ only service. It can be for journalists on that one, it can be for sources, it can be for politicians that set out coverage. There are tons of different complaints. Some of them are sort of off base, but it's a really good chance to explain what we do and walk them through things. The more we promote that, but I actually think we promote it very well. I didn't even use the machine, but I always see the little references, like it needs to get stuck in every so often.
But what about to non-members? That's
No,
where
right. That's,
they may not know we have that
that's-
service. And then it might get them to join.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you know, 2 calls last year. I really should join this.
absolutely, you're correct on that. I also just want to mention that chapters are like a lot of SPJ and programming at the local level, to me, is the most effective way to get people with SPJ. I'd like to sing the praises of the chapter, because that is an exemplary chapter at doing programming and it's just effective. It's like the single one program. I praise them for that, but I still was very impressed and shared what they did. A program that got them grant money from the SPJ chapter grant program, which I encourage more chapters to use. So few do. We need to promote that a lot more. They got a grant to do getting the scoop, and they had ice cream scoops printed in this big level and to different college campuses and talk about use what is used and have ice cream. And like everybody I tell this to, just eyes on that. This is such a fantastic idea. So, with that.
All right, one or two more comments, questions?
Well, I was in my vision meeting yesterday, and one young woman said, so we saw the chapter get awards. I want my chapter to be like that. I don't understand what to do. I don't know how to get started. And I said, this would be very simple, but, talk about what you guys did to win awards. And I said, how simple would that be to actually, put out or send out? This is what they did. I didn't talk about it here, but I don't think.
It's often in a press release,
Yeah.
with links in the press release. The problem of our digital world is there's so much information, and how do we capture it? How do we find it? How do we get it? What we need it? But yeah, we could think about, one of the things we talked a lot about, our site, for example, has a link to programs in a box, meaning just click it, it's like really old and stuff from 2 decades ago. Right, but it's there, right? So if somebody at some point said, this is a good idea, we should make these programs available. But like a lot of good ideas, somebody needs to own them and continue to replenish the well, so.
Let me just ask that, because that's something that Rebecca Baker's president had pushed for. We sort of didn't really get there, but we will get there. That is a good way to share all good programs.
The chapters are hungry for it.
Yes, I don't care if I'm on the board or not, I will make that happen. Because
I want to know how to do the scoop there. Sounds easy, yeah.
Every chapter report in the country this year, I'm going to go through that and pull out good programs and share. I did that in my region. I can actually kind of like live stream like annual report review, like pulling out something from each chapter. It got really hard because some of them are reports and some of them really are not doing much. Our chapters have struggled a lot, and that's why it's great to hire the ones that are doing well. Take what they are doing and share it and maybe come with others up. So that will happen.
Well, one of the things that has happened in the evolution of our communication with members is we changed the quill considerably, right? We're trying to make that 4 times a year now instead of, was it monthly or 10 times a year? And it focuses on issues in journalism instead of member success stories, programs and success stories. And so that content is not as common maybe as it once was. So we have to figure out how to address that to make sure that all happens.
Throw that online.
Yes, we could do more on the
Not using
online,
this
absolutely. That would be a place where, and I think that was the intention. I just don't think we've really, again, good intentions, maybe not always straightforward. Yes, and say your name, please.
Randy Showstack, president of the DC co-chapter. So I just want to second and emphasize the need for sharing the best practices regarding programming, regarding other things that chapters are doing around the country that are going well also, whether it's how they're doing membership, diversity, or whatever. As a chapter president, I would love to have access to all that and be able to consider doing that for our chapter. Just a couple other quick things also. I wonder if April had mentioned, for instance, earlier in your part of the presentation that there are going to be some hard decisions that are being made. I wonder if there's any possibility of giving us a quick preview of what some of those hard decisions are that are going to be made. And just a couple of quick things. I wonder also, Hector, I think, mentioned that to keep an eye on the information page for updates. I wonder if, in addition to us keeping an eye on that, if you could somehow push that information to us so that we don't have to keep looking for that.
No, but you're just going to have to bookmark and check it out.
And then finally, there was a lot of discussion about what SPJ is and how to describe it in 30 seconds. And I'd love to get your 30-second take on what SPJ is.
Well, my favorite line is promoting and protecting journalism for 110 years. I think that crystallizes in the very big sense. But let me address a couple of things. Hard decisions. One of the questions we put in front of people is, should we move? Now that's kind of a very blue sky question, right? Should we move? You know, we're in Indianapolis, it's affordable, we have our own real estate there, we have folks who live in Indianapolis, that's good. But the media capital world, not Indianapolis. So, you know, should we be in DC, New York, LA? If not be there completely, should we have a presence there? Should we, for example, do more lobbying, which I really love the idea of. I have no idea if we can afford that, but it really corresponds and complements our long focus on advocacy. To do more, we have some relationships with groups that help us do lobbying. We certainly have a very robust legal defense fund, but that's not getting ahead of the game, right? That's when somebody's under attack and peril. So could we do that? Those are just two examples, maybe part of the question. If we were to put that in an annual, in a strategic plan, you know, there's a lot of moving parts of thinking about having a presence in New York or Washington, or should we combine in full with another group, right? Should we collapse ourselves into somebody else or they collapse into us? That may happen at some point, you know, given the media landscape, that may be a prudent thing to do, a wise thing to do. I don't know. So we're going to explore some of those.
Local chapters in New York and Washington.
Say that again?
Use the local chapters in New York and Washington. Team with them to do some of that work.
Yes. I very much want to leverage our wide geographic reach to use people in different places because unlike Alex, who traveled widely this past year, I cannot do that. I can't represent SPJ across the nation. So I'm going to be calling on my colleagues on the board and people in chapters who can be our voice and our face at various things. Again, really need to be strategic about how we all use our time. We're all volunteers. We all have day jobs, right? So you just got to make it meaningful. And in terms of info page. Oh yeah, we'll definitely promote that in the weekly newsletter several times so you know how to find it and influence that. Cover everything. Any other good questions? So do watch for that. jump into the focus groups if you can, watch for other opportunities to be part of this conversation. Yeah, Matt Hall wants to say something.
I just wanted to piggyback off the programs. Is okay, so the membership committee talked about updating the program to box, and Michael Koretsky volunteered to start with that. So I think anyone who has programs, successful programs, should email them to Michael. We just want to create a list of programs that have worked in other chapters so that people have resources.
And maybe it's gonna link, to your chapter.
That could be.
Take you to what you wrote out about the SCOOP program. So Andy has a list of all this year's winners of all the various awards. That's a really good place to start.
Yeah.
Because he has text about all of these. Craig's willing to do the massage the text and make it work with it. Matt Hall.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for coming. It will be kind of a seamless handoff from Victor to me. I'm excited to work with the committee. I really appreciate you all showing up today and sharing your passion, particularly Jennifer. That was obviously very difficult for you to say, very emotional, and it touched me deeply. I think a lot of journalists ironically talk to people, and that's a difficult thing to do. So I thank you for saying that. I do think promotion is a simple way for us to kind of ease some of the friction points and frustrations of this year. People don't know what we do. We can solve that very easily by talking to one another and sharing stuff. And passion, I think, if we can capture that in the next 6 months, create this document, then we're all going to be in a much better place in 6 months, a much better place in 2 or 3 years. I love the idea of thinking in 2 or 3 year blocks, rather than having one president kind of do their own thing. Because the bottom line is we're a membership organization, we're listening to you guys, and so thank you for all sharing with us.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so we started with an affiliate, and we ended with all the chapters.
But I know we have 1%. It's more. So that's a line. There's a lot of people.